Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. My name is Ritika Sahni, and I am the founder trustee of the NGO Trinayani. I'm joined here by Debashree and Remita from the Trinayani team. And of course, our guest today is Shivangi Agrawal, also shy is what we would address Shivangi as, a queer disabled activist, researcher, writer, artist, facilitator, and national medal winning para swimmer. So, a lot of things in one package. And we have designed today's Building Back Better in a way that Debashree will be in conversation with Shivangi, and through the interaction and question answer session, we get to know about Shivangi, and we will also, as an audience, get to understand the life of someone like Shivangi in today's world. The Building Back Better series is a flagship program of Trinayani, along with a couple of other flagship programs like the Enable Disability Awareness and Capacity Building program that we have in schools, the Towards Inclusion, first of its kind, unique kind in the world, disability awareness card game kit that we use to start conversations around disability through playing cards and winning or losing. And Building Back Better this is our second edition. This is our fourth session. And we've also this time tried to maintain diverse voices coming in to speak to us, to empower us, enable us with different information to make us better people, whereby making the society a better people. That's the only way to go about it. Thank you so much, Shivangi, for joining in on a Friday. Thank you, everybody who's joined in. Debashree, thank you so much for taking the lead on this. Over to you and Shivangi.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks a lot for setting the context right for us. Thanks again, Shivangi, for joining us today. So first, we would just like to start to to understand you. And I know that we all know that every advocate has a story. So to begin with, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and like how you find your way into the disability rights and queer advocacy?
Sure. So thank you, Ritika and Debashree, for having me. And yeah, it's been a really long time since I did something like this again. And yeah, I'm really happy to work with Debashree, get to know Debashree a little bit, and share about myself, because I don't, I haven't done this in a year, more than a year, I think. I used to do it a lot more often, but yeah, I mean, I think I'll, start with maybe introducing myself a little bit from my own perspective. So yeah, I grew up in Delhi, and I have a disability. I have a physical locomotor disability, and I have this disability by birth. And I think, yeah, I mean, I've I worked a lot in the disability field, and understood different perspectives about disability. But I think what really helped me in my journey is when I, after graduating from school, I got the opportunity to study in the US, and I lived there for around 6 years. And that's where I think, I learned a lot more about myself, and who I am. And, even also my journey, because as a kid, I, I used to just try to avoid the fact that, I was disabled, and there is a shame a lot of times that is sort of prescribed to you when you have a disability. So I think a lot of disabled people will relate to this, where they, cut off their photos, or, they try to hide
Yes.
as much of their disability as much as they can. And for me, in school, I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want to be in a spotlight. And with my very visible disability, I felt like I was always in the spotlight. And so I think in school, even though I knew that I was, I was queer, I didn't want to admit it. I just didn't want there to be another kind of a spotlight on me. And so, yeah, I think that's college is when I really started to understand who I am. And I think this word pride is when that started coming in, because the opposite of shame is pride, right? And that shame is what I grew up with. And then when I, finally got the opportunity to be independent, that's when I think a little bit more pride came in. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think in terms of my advocacy journey, I feel like I really didn't have a choice to advocate, for myself. And I've also been an advocate for others, because I relate to the struggle that, I see other people facing. I don't want them to face similar things. Um, and so, yeah, I think uh, I feel like I didn't have a choice in being an, advocate, because I faced a lot of isolation, in, inaccessibility, difficulty, sort of, yeah, just a lot of difficulty in school. I wasn't a very good student. Like, I couldn't get really great marks just because I was very isolated. And I was also very rebellious kid. I think that was a little different from some of the other disabled children and adults that I met around me. uh, I think there was this expectation that disabled people or disabled children should be compliant, or more uh, grateful, for the life that they have. But I think for me, I was like very rebellious. And Yeah, and I think, like I said, in college, that's when I felt free to be myself. And yeah, I'm openly queer now, but it was very hard to be proud, because I think, especially with my queerness, I think my parents, they wanted me to keep it private, which is what the law, when the Section 377, which is the the
Yeah.
the Section 377, which was a law that was there, that made it illegal for LGBTQIA plus community members to exist in India and many other countries, in fact, where the British had colonized. So when that was read down in 2018, the basis of it being read down, one of the bases was the Puttaswamy judgment, the right to privacy. So and a lot of the queer activists, we said that we don't, it shouldn't be a private thing, right? It is something we are proud of. It should be
Absolutely.
something, we have a public life, and we should be able to um, be queer in public, right? So I think, I mean, I'm not saying that my parents were, directly influenced by that, but I think a lot of thought processes were of people, um, who didn't understand, was influenced by that. Your private life is your own, right? But yeah, but I think that's what I kind of struggled with a lot. And I think, yeah, and I think what also really helped me in my personal journey was work, because I started working at a very young age. As I think I started working when I started college in my first year. I I got a job in the university in on campus, and I started working and started earning for myself. Which is also something very few disabled people uh, get to do, right? And so I think that also really helped me to um, be more independent. And yeah, I think I've been working for now almost more than 10 years of experience in various different fields. I have worked in education. I have worked in developmental organizations, and now I'm in corporates. So yeah, I've done like a lot of sessions in around disability, sexuality, gender. I have, a little bit of expertise in policy, mental health. My college degree was in psychology, clinical psychology. I've also worked with, global organizations around SRHR, which is sexual and reproductive rights, accessibility. I've trained in accessibility as well. And yeah, I'm really passionate about art as well, making art accessible for people with disabilities. Uh, so I create zines. I like to paint. I like to paint on unorthodox surfaces. Like I've painted my prosthetic shoes. I like to paint. I've painted on a couple of my friends' wheelchairs and walking sticks. And yeah, and then finally about my para swimming journey, it was something like I have been swimming since I was a kid, but not very professionally, just as a fun activity. Um, and I always thought that I would love to compete, but I didn't have the information or encouragement or access, I think, to be a professional swimmer. But finally, when I moved to Bangalore, I found a few people. Even though I'm now in my 30s, um, I felt that it's never too late. So last year I finally started to compete, which is something I've always wanted to do. Uh, and Yeah, I mean, it has been difficult. Like I still haven't found a person who would coach me. There's more, in para swimming also there is a little bit of, they encourage more younger people. Now I'm in my 30s, I'm a woman. I don't see, like, I was competing with people in the nationals last year with people who were 18, 19, 20, early
Yeah.
20s. So I think that has also been a bit of a struggle. I also want to compete internationally, but it has been a slow process. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I hope that I made sense. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Shivangi. Thanks for this, introduction of yourself. And I can so much relate to it when you say that it's, you're always on the spotlight. And so it's very difficult on the initial days, even for me also, to be yourself, just to be yourself. So it's so difficult because we are always living on, someone other, somebody else's perspective, or how somebody else wants to right see us. So yeah, I can I can relate to it completely, Shivangi. So you also mentioned that you are extremely rebellious, right? Yeah. Is there any story that you would like to share of your rebellion nature? It's up to you if you'd like to share with us.
I mean, there's a lot of them. I think there's different levels of rebelliousness also. And I think as a kid, I think some of them are maybe funny, and some of them were, a little bit maybe you know uh, dangerous. I don't know. But I used to, just it's not that I really liked it, but uh, just, in 10th and or 11th, uh, you know, I, uh, I tried smoking. I would go out and drink, and I mean, I was a very typical Delhi. I was surrounded by Delhi girls, right? And so,
Okay.
um, so those were dangerous things. But some of the fun things, maybe, or funny, I shouldn't say fun, but funny things that I did, I would play like really loud music in my room. Another thing that I was very, passionate about, the environment. And I would really uh, push my parents not to burst crackers. Uh, yeah, I mean, it was almost like a house band that I said that if anybody burst crackers, I would, really cause a lot of trouble. And I would cause a lot of trouble. I would break things. I would, you know, scream. I would bang the doors. So yeah, I mean, those are just some of the rebellious
Are you still that
incidents.
angry young woman?
No, not at all. I have calmed down too much, maybe.
Okay, okay, okay. All
Yeah.
right. So, as you were talking about your journey, so looking back, Shivangi, were there moments when you felt excluded, from disability spaces because of your queerness, or from queer spaces because of your disability?
Right. So, yeah, I think I'll speak first about the disability spaces, and especially I think in India, but also when I was living in the US, I felt I didn't feel like I belonged in disability spaces. I felt there was a lot of heteronormativity. I don't know how many of you are like familiar with this term heteronormativity, where
Explain a
you
little.
yeah. So, heteronormativity is where you are automatically expected to be performing the gender roles in which you are attracted to the opposite gender.
Okay.
Um, so there was this constant expectation, and I think this was more later in my life. When I came back from the US, where I saw that in the disability circle there was this always this question that why am I not in a marriage, or marriage is something which redeems a lot of disabled
Yeah.
people in India. Maybe your quality of life and all is increased. And in fact, I recently learned that the government funds disabled people getting married to non-disabled people, right? I don't know if it's there in other states, but I learned in Karnataka there is a
Yeah.
some kind of a, I think, joint bank account with a certain amount which is given to non-disabled and a disabled couple, right, when they get married. So it's like pushed by the politics as well, where you are redeeming your disability by getting married. So I experienced that a lot, and I think I also have a very different disability. I mean, we all do. I think we all have a very, very different disabilities, but I have seen people who are part of deaf community, who are part of the blind community. They relate a lot more to each other. They support each other, but I don't see that a lot in the maybe the physical disability or locomotor disability space. And I have a very, even with within locomotor disability, I have a very different disability. Like for example, people who have polio or cerebral palsy, they have, maybe some of them have some communities and groups that they can be part of and relate to each other. But I think for me, because I have a physical disability which is a little bit different, it's like a amputation by birth on all four of my limbs. uh, that's something not very, it's a little bit rare. So that's where I think I just didn't know where my space was in the disability space. And being that rebellious person, if someone questions your, why you're not married, or even whatever, like just the expectation that they have that, oh, you can't do this, or you can do this. I think that is something that kind of made me a little reluctant to move into the disability space. And yeah, I think in terms of the queer spaces, I have felt and again, this is just my experience, right? Everybody has different experiences,
Right.
but I have felt that the queer spaces are a little more welcoming. I have felt like I have found a home in a lot of the queer spaces where people really understand and accept who I am and respect me, as an adult, which is where I found a lot of issues in the disability circle, where people don't treat you maybe a lot of times like you have agency and you're an adult. I think now there are many more disability spaces where you can do that, but I think yeah, in queer spaces, I think I felt a lot more myself and who I could be. But definitely, even in the queer circles, there was struggles where I think the inaccessibility is one where even the pride marches are long and draining, and you know so that inaccessibility is the main part of the queer movement or queer circles, which I think has been a bit of a challenge, but I think not as much. I mean, I think I really feel at home with queer people. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's good to understand like both the aspects, and you really explain so well. Uh, and it is the kind of a discussion that we are having right now is based on the intersectionality, that we are
Yeah.
talking about. So, for the people who may be new to this conversation, would you like to explain the term intersectionality a little bit, especially in the context of disability and queerness?
Yeah. So with intersectionality, I'll, share about, like, how many of you, I know there's like a very few, 10 people in this group, but how many of you know where the word intersectionality comes from? How many of you have even heard of this term intersectionality? You
Yeah.
can just,
Anyone from the audience? Please feel free. Yes,
Yashwin, of course.
raised hand.
Anyone else who knows or has heard of this term intersectionality? Okay. So yeah, a lot of the spaces that I have been in, people have heard about where this word intersectionality now, but they don't know where it comes from. This is a term that was coined by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. Uh, she's a professor in the US, and she coined this term to better understand, the systems of oppressions that are faced by people with two or more intersecting identities. For her, it was race and gender. So she is a Black woman, and race and gender played a very key role in her life, where she didn't feel that she, uh, that she was understood in only Black spaces where it was mostly African American or Black people. And she also didn't feel like she belonged in all women, just women spaces with all women from different races. She felt that there was an intersectionality of her race and gender, which made it a unique experience, right? And so for me, I think uh, the two identities are, of course, disability and queerness. And I feel like my experience, it cannot just be understood as a queer person or as just a disabled person, but as both queer and disabled. Okay, both those identities are relevant to any kind of a conversation that I'm having, maybe about my identities, right? Uh, and I think for me, I think also intersectionality, it's something that a lot of organizations, companies, like right now, since I work in the corporate space, they don't understand it. So I still have to either just talk about my disability or just talk about my queerness. Because if I talk about both of them, it becomes too much for people, and I can understand. I understand why it would become too much, especially for people who are maybe, who haven't grown up in the social sectors, in the humanities, people who are engineers and doctors and things like that. So, and I think for me, it's a constant balance that I have to find. Like even today, I do struggle to show up as my full self, in the workplace or in other spaces, even amongst my family members. So it's been almost 10 years of me, like, just working in this field, but yeah, it's still a lot of hard work. And I think I also have now come to this point where I wish that people would see me for my work rather than just my identities. In the end, I we are human, right? Any of us, we who are disabled, who are queer, we are just human, right? So uh, it shouldn't be just about my disability. Oh, despite my disability, or because of my disability, or uh, even with a disability, I'm able to work, or I'm able to do this. It's because I'm human, and I want to be recognized for my work, not because of my identities, right? And that's why also, like I said earlier, I reduced a lot of these conversations because I want to be seen as just human, who is working hard in their life. So I'm exhausted a little bit also of being hyper visible. There is this term hyper visible, which I relate to a lot, especially with someone who has a physical disability, very visible disability. You become hyper visible. When you're walking down the street, you're pointed at, you're stared at, those are things I'm just exhausted, and I'm sure a lot of people are exhausted of that. And it's something, so it can be such a challenge also, because I'm uh, even as a even if for example, someone like is just walking down the street, you recognize them, but nobody else, that person doesn't recognize others, right? So I think those are things that I still, I have come back to. When I was a kid, I wanted to fit in, but now it's more about just being wanted to be seen as a human, as someone who works hard. So yeah, that's about maybe intersectionality in some ways.
Yes, yes. Thank you,
Yeah.
Shivangi, for the explanation. And Ashutosh also raised his hand, while we asked that, is there anybody in the audience who has heard the term or knows about intersectionality? So, as you're talking about the visibility part of it, so have you
Yes.
felt ever that the one aspect of your identity was more visible, or in terms of visibility, of course, disability is the aspect that is visible, maybe, but
Right.
even from the acknowledgement part of it, like, any of the identities more acknowledged or visible. So how, just wanted to understand how these two identities function in your daily life.
Right. So I think, yeah, obviously, as a kid, like I've said also, disability is definitely a little bit more visible part of my identity, because it is a very different kind of a disability and people are not used to my body, being out there. So that for sure. But I think now also, whenever I'm like traveling with my partner, I've been with my partner for almost 8 years now. So we've been together. My partner is, trans, and we like to travel together. We like to do daily things together, go out and stuff like that. And I think when it comes to security check, going to the airport, gendered toilets, wherever there are gendered toilets, I think that's when also that queerness aspect comes in, when we are checking into hotels, or traveling together, Airbnb, etc. People question, like, how are you both related, or why are you both together, or even renting apartments in Bangalore. It's not just about looking at accessibility, but also uh, constantly having to explain who we are to each other. So I think with my partner, that is a little bit more maybe visible, but for sure, disability is like a constant, uh, m- maybe shock for people, like, because of how visible it is.
Yeah, totally.
I just want, if I may, Debashree,
Yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely, ma'am. I was just about to ask that is there any question that you or
yeah,
anybody
because
has?
when you look at when we look at Shivangi, we can't see the disability thanks to the medium we're working on. So I needed to ask you, Shivangi, you use prosthetics in your lower extremities only?
Yes, yes. I mean, I can show you. So this is the shoe that I use. This is my
Okay,
shoe. And
all right,
so my disability is uh so my both my legs are up till my knees.
okay,
So I don't have knees.
correct.
So where you would have knees, that's where my legs end.
So you fit
And
that in. You fit that in there. The leg gap.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
prosthetic
correct.
stubbies. These are called prosthetic shoes or
Okay.
stubbies.
Yes.
Um, and then with my hands, I have like two fingers and a thumb on each of my hand. Yeah.
Okay. So while in your work scenario, you don't need any assistive devices. You don't use
Just my
just the
just
prosthetic,
my
just for
shoe. Yeah,
mobility,
just yeah, yeah.
for mobility. And your partner also has a disability? Is it also?
Yeah, so
Okay.
they have autism.
Ah,
They're yeah, a little bit on the autism spectrum. It's an invisible
invisible.
disability.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that because, for many of us, I don't know about Nupur, and or even in the disability sector, we don't know
Mm.
about each other. We only know what
Correct.
we, even when we are working in the sector, people who work with blind people only know about blind people, and they would not know about other disabilities also. So there is a lot of inclusiveness that needs to crop up within the sector,
Correct.
and
Absolutely. Yeah.
just not an ask for other people to be inclusive. So I think, and therefore, please do not mind when I wanted everybody to know that. All
I
right,
understand. I
what's
understand.
happening. Yeah. All right. Lovely. Any other question? Before Debashree goes on to ask, Shivangi has really talked about some very interesting things, also given us definitions. For most of us who also work within the sector, these are
Hello,
very new.
am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
I
Balraj.
would like
Yes,
to
Balraj.
ask a question.
Yes,
Firstly,
please.
I would like to appreciate her audacity and her confidence, the way Shivani has expressed herself and her experiences. It is really commendable. Thank you so much, Shivani, for being here. Secondly, I would like to know, I'm curious to know actually, as a former disability and queer researcher, I'm curious to know when you experienced your queer sexuality for the first time or for a couple of times, maybe after that, did you have some kind of internalized phobia related to your queerness?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sorry, I forgot the name of the person.
Balraj.
Balraj, yes. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Balraj. And I really did want to speak a lot more about queerness. So, yeah, for me, I think I definitely faced a lot of that internalized homophobia when I was very young. I think I remember I was maybe, I think 14, 15, 8th or ninth grade when I, had feelings. Someone had feelings for me and I had feelings for them. But I just was very scared of it, and I completely abandoned it, and that was someone who of the same gender as me. And yeah, I mean, I still, it's still something in my heart where I missed, it's something that I just didn't admit. I would, with people around me, I would, even with my family, or, uh, the few friends that I had, at certain points in my life, I would always just talk about boys, because that was the common thing, that was the popular thing, and that's how you fit in. I never used to admit about it. But I think when like I said, in college, I felt a lot more comfortable. I met a lot of queer people in college, and I think it just came naturally to me. It wasn't something that I was shocked about, or it wasn't something that I was like coming out of a closet or something. But yeah, it was more like just being able to openly express myself in a more independent way. And I think that means a lot to people with disabilities when they become, independent and not,
Right.
or maybe I should say interdependent. I think interdependence is more of a nicer way to explain, where you aren't just,
Go.
uh, in your own, but you rely on others as well. Your identities and um, your the way you function in
Right.
life, in your daily life, is something that you depend on others. And I still do. I am dependent on my partner. If I didn't have my furry pets also, that's something that, so yeah, I mean, we are interdependent, right? And so
Uh,
um,
got that. Thank you so much for answering my question. But I do have a follow up question to that. You did mention that you're openly queer, right?
right.
So, did you face any kind of exclusion or isolation from your family when you came out of your closet in front of your parents, or were they receptive towards, willingly accepting your fluid sexuality?
No, I think, yeah, in the beginning they were very understanding, accepting, and I think maybe because it wasn't something that they had to constantly confront with, they were accepting in the beginning. But when I started going out, started actively dating, and being proud of my queerness, and when I came into a serious relationship with my partner, that's when I there was a lot of I think isolation that I faced from my family, anger that I faced from my family, where they were, they said that why do you have to go around saying that you both are partners? Like, why even today, they whenever we are around my family, and we try to avoid it, but whenever we are around my family, and whenever we are in spaces with a lot of heterosexual adults. I mean, I'm also an adult, but like older people, I think it's we just say friends. I mean, I've tried a lot in around my family to say that we are partners, but my parents, they are not comfortable, I think, and I don't want to push it anymore. And I think that's something that I still struggle with a lot, where
Well,
my
that's
parents are not.
okay. You're more independent now, right? So that really doesn't matter. Thank you so much. It was a delight to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for answering my question and enlightening me about more about your life.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Balraj. Thank you so much, Balraj. Over to you. Over to you, Debashree.
Yes. So before I move on, I would also like to ask if anybody else has any question to Shivangi.
You can remove me from the
Yeah,
spotlight.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So I think so Shivangi, we can move on. I have a couple of more questions. So as you're talking about that you're saying that you want people to know more about your work rather than the identities that you carry, right? So uh, tell us something about your work. You are on mute, Shivangi.
Oh, I don't know how I went on mute. Okay, so for my work, I think I started at a very young age, like I said, and in college, while I was a full-time student, I was also working two jobs. And I have worked very difficult, like physically exhausting jobs as well. Uh, when I was in the US, and even here, I have worked like all different kinds of roles, and uh, you know, uh, thing jobs which have also, have caused me like permanent physical pain and things like, chronic pain and things like that. So, I have worked really hard in that way, and I think that's something that I think it was instilled in me, because I know I haven't said a lot of great things maybe about my family and parents, but my parents have been very supportive and pushed me to be independent. Without that aspect of my mother really pushing me to be my independent and supporting me in my decision, in my rebellious nature to want to go study abroad, even though we didn't have the financial means to do that. We had to take a bunch of loans and things like that. I think that I'm really grateful for, because I think even now in the corporate job that I have, I take it very seriously. I don't take it for granted, because I know that there's so many queer people, so many disabled people who don't have these opportunities, who don't have work, who cannot live independently. Um, and it's not about that they cannot, it's they don't have the infrastructure, the support from the government, the caregivers are not supportive a lot of times. I think in India we don't talk a lot about the caregiver abuse that a lot of disabled people go through. And it's very important, very, very important, especially in the disability spaces, to talk about the caregiver. Even if it's not abuse, the challenges that a lot of us face from caregivers. A lot of my friends, face that, where they're in complete control of their family members, and they can't say or speak anything against their family. And so a lot of times I really respect a lot of disabled people who do talk about that. The challenges that they have with their caregivers, because it's so rare in India. Um, but yeah, I think, sorry, I diverted the topic, but yeah, I think in my work, I haven't also spoken about now, like right now, I'm working in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space in a corporate and in an IT company. And I think one of my biggest uh, goal right now is to ensure that the queer people and disabled people that we hire feel comfortable, and that there should be a lot more hiring happening, right? There should be a lot more spaces held for disabled and queer people. And I think also where you know people with disabilities feel proud of who they are. That's something that I don't see very commonly. I think in the IT spaces where disabled people are very proud of their identity, they just again like try to still hide it. In their late 20s, in their 30s, 40s, even they're still trying to hide it. They're still trying to adapt to their surroundings. They don't ask for reasonable accommodations. They don't ask for accessibility, and I think that's something that I really want. And I encourage a lot of the people that we hire from the disability community. So yeah, that's a little bit about my work.
Yeah, yeah. So good to know that you're coming from this space of diversity hiring. Even I've been in that space for last 4 5 years. So I'm very happy that you mentioned about it. So uh, just wanted to check with you because you're coming from this DEI space. So would you like to mention things that right now the organizations or companies they're doing right, or are there things that they're still missing out, or overlook? And this is both in terms of the entire diversity I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I think for me, I think there are a lot of positives to corporate spaces, which is something I think we hear very rarely. But I think for people from marginalized communities, there are a lot of positives. I think there's a lot more companies working towards inclusion, bringing in anti-discrimination protections and policies. Which is something that you don't see in other sectors, or you see a little bit less of. And I think, yeah, I mean, companies, are doing a lot more of serious work in this space. And also in corporates, I think one of the positive things that I've seen is that there is some, flexibility which has being offered, working from home, dress code policies, which can be a big challenge for queer and trans community members. They have become more flexible. And there is yeah, I mean, there is also, like I said earlier, that there's targeted hiring happening for disabled and queer people, which does not really happen in other spaces, I feel. And I think that is very meaningful, where there is two or three recruiters especially hired to recruit members from disability and LGBTQIA plus communities. There's also, I think, a lot more visible support now through pride communities, which we call employee resource groups or business resource groups. There's pride celebrations, like in June. There's a lot more pride celebrations happening. Then there is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities in December. Even July has become the Disability Pride Month. So these are all being recognized and visibly supported by many allies. And I think this kind of celebration helps with recognizing that there is people from these communities in these companies as well, even though there is a very small proportion, but there is still this kind of a celebration helps to really eradicate that discomfort a lot of people might have uh, with the topics of disability and LGBTQIA plus inclusion. So those are some of the positives. In terms of improvements, maybe I think there is
There is
I
always
feel,
hope for improvement, and I'm sure there are a lot of
of
things that
course, of
done.
course. So I think intersectionality is something, I wanted to talk about in the context of the workplace. It has a huge role to play in the workplaces, and I think that is something which is still missing. So I wanted to bring, these examples, like, for example, in the US, there are many studies on the wage gap, right? The wage gap that exists between men and women, where women are being paid way lesser compared to men, right? And how, uh, there are also many studies. There are many examples and studies and research being done also on the wage gap that exists between different races also. So, for example, women who are Black are paid way less than white women, right? So that is also a wage gap that is talked about a lot. Uh, Asian women are paid less than white women. And so there is a lot of, this wage gap research which has been done in, companies and organizations. And I think even for, a few years ago, or even now, I think when there are women specific hiring happening, um, they don't, or there are a lot of women returnee programs where, women are encouraged to come back to work after marriage and, giving birth, etc. how many of those women returnee programs actually consider trans women who also have, have to take a career gap because of one reason or another? How many of the, Women's History Month is very widely celebrated in many companies. How many of them are really looking at bringing in speakers from the Dalit community, right? Dalit women who speak, who are working so hard, and they're not recognized as much. And I think that recognition is also important, that being proud of the identity that you come from, when it relates to your socioeconomic status. So I think those are things, for a lot of people who are living in those intersections, that glass ceiling that a lot of people talk about, breaking the glass ceiling, it's still very far away for people from, different intersections. And I think workplaces, if they think about intersectionality and spotlight lived experiences, that is something that can really make a difference. And I think that includes NGOs, right? If you spotlight lived experiences, you let people who have lived experiences lead conversations, lead organizations, I think it is really magical. It is something that can make a huge difference. And I think that is something that I felt is very important to be considered in workplaces. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's great. I think answered really well, extremely balanced and very, very to the point answer, Shivangi. So thanks for, thanks for the answer. I was just thinking, see, I'm sure that a lot of people, want to be allies, right? For the community, for the LGBTQIA community as well. Uh, so how to go about it? Like, if today I want to be aligned, so how I can go about it? Are there any courses or training that I have to take, or are there organizations that I can connect with? So if you can just throw some light on that part.
Yeah, so for allies, I think there's definitely a lot of space to learn, and especially now with a lot of legislature and laws which are coming in, which are a little bit more aggressive than they were maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago for the queer community. I think we need allies really to step in to be more visible and vocal supporters, because the allies are the ones who really know the jokes that are made, right? The jokes that are made, the questions that are asked, the discomfort that maybe you felt as someone who's not from the community. You know what it is. You know the jokes that were made in school. You know the jokes that were made in college, in your college, etc. So uh, that is a power that you have to really share your journey as an ally, to tell people that this is what the being an ally has, this is the impact that it has had on my point of view, on how I approach my work and how I approach this world, and even the conversations that I have with my kids or my family members. That is your power as an ally. I think that's where we need a lot more people who are allies to share their journey and step in, um, and yeah. And I think also, even like talking about the struggles that you've had to make people understand, right? uh, Trying uh, to show up for people from the LGBTQI community, the struggles that you've maybe faced with that, whatever it is, or maybe even making people understand that. I think that can be very impactful compared to someone who's queer sharing their own journey, or someone who's queer sharing the struggles that they've faced. That I think will be more relatable when allies talk about it, because it is exhausting, right, for us to keep on talking about the struggles that we faced. And I think, Debashree, you and I, we spoke about that inspiration porn aspect, right, where we don't want to be just seen as someone who has broken through the struggles and broken through the stigma and whatever. We we all have our own struggles, we all have our own stories, and I think it's important that people who have really changed their mindset about something which used to be very taboo. I think that those stories can be a lot more impactful. And I think, of course, we say this very often, allies, they should question, the policies, they should challenge the practices which you think are quote unquote normal. It's no longer, just about sharing your pronouns. I think it's really trying to go lot more beyond that, talking to your friends, to your family members, inviting people, from with disabilities or from the queer communities into your personal life, having them over, having them in your family gatherings, in your events and parties, encouraging them to come and ensuring that there is inclusion and that there is respect, even if they don't understand. That bare minimum is the respect aspect, right? How many of the non-disabled and non-LGBTQIA community members have friends or even have deeper conversations with people who are from the disability or LGBTQIA community members? This is a question I really want to ask, Kyla, is where how many of you have really had someone from the LGBTQ community in your house, or have you gone out with someone from the disability community into a restaurant? Those are things that I think are very simple ways to learn how to be an ally. So that is one. And then, of course, organizations, trainings, courses. I don't know about trainings and courses, but for sure Pride Circle, I think, is doing a really good job in uh, talking about awareness, inclusion for the LGBTQ community in corporate spaces, in NGO, in education spaces. All of these spaces, they're doing a lot of work, and they're doing it in fun ways. They're doing it in serious ways. So I think Pride Circle is one good organization to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent. I think Ashutosh has raised his hand. So Ashutosh, is there any question that you want to ask?
Yes, sir. If you have any friend who have met or who because I want to know, because like what happens I always wonder like when they meet with big people, why they don't ask question or why they don't raise the ground reality issues in front of the honorable prime minister, honorable president, or such big people. If you have answer, please tell.
I have the same question. I would want to ask that to people, but I also want to tell you that I don't think we should give so much power to so many people in power, right? We shouldn't make them icons. We shouldn't give them the power to have control over us. I think the communities have more power, the communities that we exist in, and I think that's where you can make changes. I say that change comes from bottom to top. A lot of people in corporates and other organizations say that top-down approach is better, but I say that the bottom-up approach is way more impactful. Why aren't you talking to someone who works in as who's a security guard or who cleans the bathroom? Why aren't you talking to them about the changes that they would like to see, or that you would like to see? I think that those are conversations that would be more meaningful, at least as far as I am concerned, than having those kind of conversations with people who we give too much power. Yeah. Sorry if I was like a little disrespectful, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, that's just what I feel.
They are policy maker. That's why. Okay. Second one, who have a more acceptation in society, people with disabilities or people with LGBTQ plus community.
Acceptance, huh? You said
Yeah.
acceptance?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a very difficult question, and I also feel like maybe it shouldn't be compared, or it's not a competition, because in different aspects, both communities, LGBTQ and disabilities, have struggled a lot. We still, both people with disabilities and LGBTQ communities, still don't have access to the basic things, education, jobs, houses, and these are both things that I think are big struggles for both community. The basic things are still a big struggle. So yeah, I don't think, and in both spaces, you see people who are really well off, in people with disabilities who are doing really well, who are recognized, who are, have great lives and all. I mean, not great lives, but at least a lot of access and and even in the LGBTQ community, there are many people who are popular and have access and are accepted for who they are. So. Yeah, I don't know if there is any way to compare that.
I don't want to compare because my professor did compare. That's why I was
Okay.
curious. He was teaching a subject of political parties. Every political parties were available in across the world, but
Okay.
no political party based on people with disabilities. So I asked question. So he simply pointed out to me like people with disabilities are
No,
acceptable in the society. LGBTQ
no.
plus are not acceptable.
Hmm.
So that's why. The third and last question. You were in the USA, right? And which things we can learn from them, and which are good things?
For the US, I think, of course, uh, the context of that country is very different than ours, right? It's a very individual and very self-driven sort of a culture, whereas in India, we are more family-oriented, we're more interdependent and yeah, and I think in the US, but yeah, of course, there are some good things. Like I think in the disability space, I feel like there is a lot of policies and practices. And even though in India we have a very strong Rights for Persons with Disabilities Act, the implementation is very uh, hardly there. So I think that implementation is what we can learn from in the US, where there's a lot more access to caregivers. So since I'm a person with disability and if I need a caregiver, a lot of us in India, we have to depend on our family members or, domestic workers, um, if they're willing or if they understand. But in the US, the government provides, or if you also, the domestic workers, if you're able to pay for them as well, right? Because there is a money aspect as well, which a lot of disabled families and disabled persons' families cannot afford. So in the US, they actually are funded by the government. I think that is one big thing which really helps a lot of disabled people be independent from their family members and show up as who they are, even in their family spaces, because they get that access to caregivers from the government. But of course, there are a lot of challenges in that as well. They have to they have to go through a lot of hoops to be able to access those. There's also housing, which is provided by the government. There is a disability pension, which is a lot more meaningful compared to what it is in India. Right, in India, I think the pension is a joke. So I think those things are, I think, definitely things we can learn from. Uh, yeah, yeah. There's definitely so many more things. I mean, maybe we'll need maybe another
Yes.
hour to.
But thank you, Shivangi. In fact, thank you, Ashutosh, for those three questions, because those three questions, the answers that you gave to those three questions were very interesting. So it's always so interesting to have questions from everybody to be able to get certain perspective. I also want to, Shivangi, urge you to maybe write on the issue of caregiver that you mentioned, let's say about 15, 20 minutes back. That's a very pertinent observation. I've been in the sector for the last 40 years, so I know what you're talking about. I've had the
Right.
privilege of working and meeting with a very diverse set across many, many states. It'll be lovely if you can write about it, from your perspective, because it would make so much sense, and maybe allow other people to speak up, because people are really not speaking up. And
Correct.
so that was I wanted to point that out before Debashree takes over and closes the session. But that's very, very important. in fact, every question of yours, I'm going to be editing out. All right, and with your permission, posting it separately, because you have answered some very interesting, you've given some very interesting observations about, what is intersectionality, who was the one who attributed to talk about it. These are and thankfully, Debashree, fantastic conversations that you've had with Shivangi in the last 1 or 2 weeks, because the questions have really given us some very interesting, even the D&I space. I loved the suggestions that you've made. I've loved I mean, what's working, what needs to be still worked upon. So I hope you're going to be fine if we really edited this out, and of course the YouTube will have the entire session, but it'll be nice to have these snippets, because it'll be more accessible to people who do not want to watch an hour show. Thank you so much, Shivangi. Yes, Dipesh.
Yes, so I have no more questions. Actually, I have a lot of questions.
Right.
Yeah, we could
Yeah,
have
we
we
prepared
could
a
have
lot
another
more.
session with her, with Shivangi, in July.
Thank you so much, Shivangi. Thanks a lot. I think it's just the time, we have reached the time. Otherwise, we could have really continued the conversation for 1 more hour, for sure. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for being so vocal about everything. So there is a wonderful message from Yashwin in the chat. Thank you, Shai. This has been a great learning session for me personally. So proud to know someone like you. Thank you so much to the organizers for creating this great space for learning. Looking forward to more such learnings from Trinayani. Thank you so much, Yashwin. I think with this note, we can uh, conclude today's session, ma'am.
Thank you. It was lovely speaking to you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Debashree, Remita from our team. Everybody else, Balraj, thank you for the questions. Ashutosh, thank you. Chinmaya, Yashvin, Nupur, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shivangi.